Okay, so a very good evening to everyone. We would like to thank each one of you for being a part of Global FinTech Fest, organized by FinTech Convergence Council of IAMEI and National Payments Corporation of India, presented by Department of Economics, Ministry of Finance, and Reserve Bank of India, powered by Amazon Pay, and brought to you by WhatsApp and Google Pay. So with that, I would like to move on to our next panel discussion, the theme of which is taking off payments for the masses. Firstly, I would like to introduce you to our moderator, Mr. Amit Jain, Director, PwC. And for the session, we have our esteemed panelists, Mr. Sunil Khosla, President, Digital Business and Chief Marketing Officer, AGS Transact Technologies, Mr. Anand Bajaj, Co-founder and CEO, Pay Nearby, Mr. Akash Sinha, Co-founder and CEO, Cashfree, and Mr. Mandar Agashe, Founder, Managing Director, and Vice Chairman, Sarvatra Technologies. We welcome all of you, and I would now request Mr. Jain to please take over the session. Thank you.
Thank you, Garima. Namaste, everyone. A very good evening to our audience joining us from India. And a very good morning to our audience and attendees joining from West. And a very good afternoon to people joining us from Europe and Middle East. Welcome again to this session on an interesting topic, payments for the masses. And welcoming again to this esteemed panelist who are coming with a rich experience in the payments ecosystem. Just to set the context for this and for the benefit of people joining us from outside India, I wanted to give some data points in the context of our discussion. So India is about 1.3 billion population with 99% of them having unique identity number called Aadhaar. We have about 2 billion plus bank accounts, and most of them got opened under a special scheme launched by government called Jan Dhan. We have about 900 million plus debit cards and 60 million credit cards. On mobile phone penetrations, we have about 500 plus million smartphones and equal number in feature phones. On acceptance side, we have about 0.8 billion banking correspondent touch points and about 60 million POS devices and equal number of devices even on digital POS as well. Now, in the context of this backdrop, I wanted to give three personas to my panelists. Persona one, where we have millennials and a class of population residing in urban and semi-urban areas who have smartphones, are tech savvy, and they have been using digital payments for a variety of purposes and are still looking for other options to continue making digital payments and having a seamless experience. The second persona, we have a same class of populations who are sitting or residing in urban and semi-urban areas, but still are wary of digital payment options, and they are being forced to use these options either at one time COVID crisis. Which constitutes a large or mass population of the country and which are residing in rural areas, which don't have access to smartphones, are using feature phones, and some of them don't have phones at all. Now, against all of these personas, we have got enablers in the country, be it digital infrastructure or digital channels in terms of UPI, Bharat bill payment systems, QR codes, or APS, other enabled bill payments. But one of the ecosystem players is the merchants or the banking correspondents who are actually providing this last mile payment options to the customers. And that's going to be one of the core discussion points which we want to touch upon during this session. Let me now turn to my panelists. That financial inclusion is one of the core agenda that drives across the economies. And one of the core pillars is the digital inclusion to support this financial inclusion drive. Let me start with Anand to check your perspective or your take. Like in the current COVID situation, how do you see adoption of digital payments both by customers and more importantly by the retailers or the merchants who you have been sort of empowering through multiple ways? And
I would say that any growth which is not inclusive is self-destructive, and hence the agenda of inclusion. I must compliment you and NPCI for hosting this session. That said, about the adoption of the digital payment, two things drive such changes. One is greed, one is fear. You have already seen one. The other is the time for the fear-driven propulsion, if I may say. And needless to say that every Indian today wants to come on to digital and treat this as digital. These are 10 cards in the hand of a consumer, and that the rural India is not disempowered. They are having infrastructure, no expiry date, no pins to forget. So the adoption is faster than you would see. Thankfully, the work being done already on the India landscape by a lot of PSU banks, by relaying the accounts, the infrastructure is built. Everyone has an account almost. Everyone has an Aadhaar almost. And now it is to see that how do you orchestrate the Sare Gama Padha Nisa. The Sargam is there. The A.R. Rahman Sahab composes music. So does Anu Malik, to play to different galleries. Right now in India, you have a UPI, you have a AEPS, you have an eNACH recently approved, and what got approved today morning on UPI on auto payment. So the payment products are available. How do we reorchestrate them, rewire them to meaningfully reach out to the right people? Someone was asking me before this session that how do people know what do they want? And my answer was that we should know what they want. Just like Steve Jobs said that if you go around surveying, people will not tell you what they really need or want or they can do. You have to be observant and empathize and give them what is to them. And hence, I would say the adoption will be faster than we would be surprised, actually. That's my take, Amit.
Amit, you need to unmute yourself.
Sorry about that. Thanks, Anand. In fact, you made a very interesting point about one API to help a lot of urban class population, and on the other end, we have got Aadhaar for helping them get payments or remittances using APIs. And that's where I wanted to bring in Mandar just to kind of get your perspective, Mandar, that how population, people sitting in rural parts of the areas, how have they been handling this particular situation? What do you see how AEPS has helped them in getting the money when they need it?
So during these 3 months, the most surprising growth in transaction we saw was in AEPS. Usually AEPS were in the picture compared to UPI and IMPS. And suddenly AEPS took off, and in last 2-3 months we have seen the transactions grow from like 2 lakhs a day to 40-50 lakhs a day. So there's huge number of people who migrated could use AEPS in a big way, and that came carrying their debit cards, or they did not. It was that AEPS. So IPS went down, and that we have all the possible different types of transactions. Now it's just a question of making them available at different points, so that whether it's an urban customer or rural customer has access to it and feels comfortable in using it. Unless that, the mass adoption will not happen. So I think during the demonetization, how the carding happened on the issuing side, this time it is more on the BC points and acquiring side. So the BCs became very active. So also the bank branches. So we do computation across 600 rural banks. So I saw the employees of the banks carrying micro ATM and going to people's home or societies and offering a port, what you can say, a ATM on the go. So on a particular day, they would carry this micro ATM and wait outside a society, and the people in the society could come and withdraw cash there. So they were innovative. The rural guys created ATM vans, though they were not actual ATM inside the van, but a micro ATM and some cash and a security guard. So I think it was fantastic. These 3 months, the way our bankers and the BCs have really come forward to support customers, it is mind-boggling.
Thank you, Manda. In fact, yeah, one of the point which you mentioned is around this ATMs, micro ATMs to help the needy. customers get the cash at their doorstep. I wanted to get in Mandar and just get your, sorry, I want to get in Sunil here and just get your perspective on this ATMs. Like, how do you see the ATM still having their role to play in the future of digital payments ecosystem, while cash is the king and people will still prefer to go to ATMs to withdraw cash. But do you see digital adoption at ATMs through utility bill payments and other value-added services which ATMs can?
Yeah. So firstly, good evening, everyone, and good morning to other parts of the world. And thanks, Amit. So I think ATM is a very funny story, and though this is a digital payment session, but our company does both cash and digital. And as you rightly said, that ATM is not going anywhere. And when we also anyone, we have a very simple thing to tell them that in India, cash and digital payment will always coexist, at least for the next 30, 40 years. And though the growth of digital payment will be much, much higher compared to a cash one. Post Demon also, I think it was 8 November 2016 when everybody thought what will happen to ATMs. Nothing happened. In fact, cash in circulation went up from 16,000 lakh crore to probably 20,000 lakh crore. And so was digital payment, because we are blessed to be in a country where its population is not a curse, which is quoted by a lot of people, but I think is a boon. And we have a lot of smart Indians and taking the economy forward. So that is the potential part of it, that ATM is not going anywhere. Let it be demon or even now, even in the COVID times in 3-4 months, of course, there was when people are not moving out, they cannot do a lot of transactions. But as the unlock 1.0 was happening, as unlock 2.0 was happening, what we saw, and this is a very good news for all of us, the rural transactions were coming back faster, because I think so-called containment zone or red zones were confined to probably more of urban area. So the transaction pattern stays the same or probably increasing in rural compared to a pre-COVID time for ATMs. And urban also is now slowly and steady coming back. It's only that, and another thing which is happening is people are taking probably a smaller sum of money right now. It could be a case for micro ATMs and other places. Now, coming to digitization, I think a simple thing that we are doing, and that was in news a few weeks back, in fact, last year as well, is that making ATM money withdrawal as a contactless money withdrawal. That is the simplest thing, and there are a lot of form factors linked to that. But we understand, and a lot of people probably would have a short-term apprehension that what do I do in terms of touching the cash. So personally, I don't feel there is a major issue, but still, by making those ATMs as contactless, at least I'm skipping 2 steps. That is a simple piece. Barring that, we also have our own CRM or WLA by the name of Ongo, which majorly are recruiting into the rural market. I think there is a lot of scope of making that ATM, which few people call as anytime money. I think I call that all-time manager. So government manager word is a very big word. So a manager is a big boss. So you can make this campuses or the ATM, which is a much bigger machine compared to the POS machines, a manager for them where they any case, any which way they trust the ATMs a lot. But so currently, rather than only taking out money from them, we've already started depositing of money in the ATM, which is a big thing. Second, the BBPS platform where at least they can do the utility bills and all. And there are a lot of other things from a ATM perspective which are happening. 2-3 new things that we are trying to do is creating some kind of synergy in terms of marketing as well, where other people can push their rural products at least through the ATM platform. And it's not only the ATMs that we're talking about, but there's something else that we're doing with one of our ATMs, which will be out in the next 2-3 months, where companies can push their products linked to rural environment, and the merchant and consumer can benefit out of it. So I think there are a lot of things which are possible. There is something called a digital locker, which is becoming a very interesting step, which will be integrated further within ATMs. So ATM already are not only dependent on cash. We are firstly making them as a digital dispensing, plus also integrating a lot of other digital offering, which can happen through the ATM. So I think there are a lot of interesting things which are happening.
Thank you, Sunil. Thank you. I want to move to Akash and a different perspective. Like we have heard about what's typically happening in rural areas in terms of ATMs and micro ATMs, sort of support functions. In the COVID environment, we saw a lot of merchants wanting to come and adopt digital channels for allowing their customers, be it the nearby retail stores or be it the e-commerce companies, wanting to sort of go away with the COD models. Akash, how do you see that particular sort of environment, what we saw in the last 3 months and which we believe is going to continue in the next few months? But do you see this is we see in the the merchants are going to continue in an omni-channel experience to provide to their customers when it comes to digital payments?
Sure, thanks, Amit. I think before I answer your question, I just like to set the context for the audience. Right. Good evening, everyone. I'm Akash. I'm founder of Cashfree. We are a digital payments platform which help businesses accept and disburse payments. Right. So coming to your question, Amit, I think from the merchant side, right? See, so far for last 10 years, we are trying to go from 0 to 1 in terms of digital payments. Right. It's like we are trying to set up the infrastructure at the merchant end. We are trying to give cards, UPI and to at the consumer end. Right. I think we are pretty successful in that. Right. Especially in urban, semi-urban area, the penetration is high. And the next step is how do we make the process work, right? And there has to be some kind of carrot and stick approach. Right? Digital payments, there are a lot of great things about payment. Right? It can be convenient, it can help you save cost, but there is already behavior in the market, and there's already some kind of upside of not using digital payments. Right? I mean, a lot of merchants don't want to do that, right? Especially during the COVID time, when the focus was on contactless, focus was on distance. Right? Merchants saw their revenue being hit if they don't adopt digital. Right? Point is, if they have a choice, if their revenues are not hitting up by not accepting digital payments, I think that this behavior will be reverted back to the older ones, like taking cash and things. Right? So these problems are outside of the digital payment ecosystem. Right? Some larger forces have to be pushed. Either consumer push that I don't have a cash, you have to accept my card or UPI, or merchant has to pay a penalty if they say no to digital payments. Right? In this case, they lose the revenue, they lose the purchase.
Agree.
Kind of in a self-correcting system in itself, right?
Agree.
And overall, if you have to increase the digital payments footprint, this is a two-dimensional problem. One is how do we increase the penetration? It means how do we bring more agents on the system, right? Bring more customers, bring more merchant. Second is how do we increase the frequency, right? So we being in urban, semi-urban area, we already have all the right tools in hand, right? But there has to be some additional things to make it more frequent, right? You have to make it more accessible. And where product like recurring payment, contactless payment, right, some kind of assisted service has to be kicked. I'll take a bigger example, right? We, as a country of India, I'm sure a lot of people would agree with me or disagree with me, right? We like to get our hand holded a lot, right? When I go in a restaurant, I just like to sit on my table and I like my big comment. When it comes to payments, it's okay. I can still bring my mobile and make the UPI payment, but I still have to do some work. You have to think about those processes, right? Can we make payments more assisted for the customer, right? Without making them do much work, right? And in those segment, I feel solution like contactless will bridge that gap. Right? There will be a good segment of customer who will be motivated enough to take their smartphone, make the payment, but there will be a customer who will just say, take my credentials and get the payment. Like I don't want to bother about it.
Agree.
In case we have to come up with new kind of infra, new kind of solution, cater to those kind of use cases. Right? Unless we think from that angle, right? One is like how do we penalize merchant, penalize business, or say in a better how do we incentivize merchant to accept digital payment? Second, how do we make payments more convenient for the end user? Say, despite educating everyone about great digital payments, unless we make it more practical and more push, inherent push, right? We still have to fight for the success. So,
Amit, can I say something?
Yeah, please come in, Sunil. Yeah.
So I think what Akash and Anand both were saying was about the fear or probably the stick approach. A very simple example in one line, when the CBDT circular came, a lot of corporates, we are talking about small merchants, but a lot of corporates were not even thinking of a digital machine. They all came running and got that done. So it is sometimes that works. So of course, incentivization, I think probably stick thing or fear thing works more than even the incentivization. And we were so happy and yet surprised to see that just because of a CBDT circular, which had certain penalty, which was peanuts for all those big corporates, they were coming. So it was like a push sales becoming a pull sales. And even till now, by the way, though there are certain changes in the circular, but still we're getting a lot of orders because of the CBDT circular. So I agree with Akash what he was saying about that piece.
that's correct.
Sure. Thanks. Yeah, in fact, yeah, this is something that we have seen in India, and I do agree with Akash and what's supplemented by Sunil, that in India, we at times we need this push, be it from government or the regulators, to try and see if there is not acceptance or adoption happening, and this is the severity circular is the reference in that context. But I think there is still more way to go when it comes to incentives, maybe the tax incentives to the merchants, or maybe other incentives which is going to help them drive, push, and accept digital payments, so that they can enable it for the customers. I want to get in Manda here. Manda, I believe cooperative banks, which are huge in number in the country, and those are also having a sort of a more sort of last mile connectivity to their community, people across the country and across the length and breadth of the country. How do you see the cooperative banks adopting digital payments, and is there an intent that you see in this journey?
Yeah, I think the cooperative banks as well as the cooperative credit societies both are extremely interested in going digital. The top banks among them have already gone digital, and the rest are following suit. And I see every day about 2, 3 banks going live on UPI. So it's a very positive trend, and we could also deploy an acquiring product in credit societies. So we did a trial run in some credit societies in Maharashtra, and we could go up to 800 credit societies in less than a year. So the demand for digital products is huge, and I think the semi-urban rural would lead the recovery after the COVID. So I think that is a very big thing, and also as we see here that the rural ATMs are actually ones who are coming back strongly compared to urban ATMs, and the digital transactions from April to July, I am seeing it almost doubling every month across every counter. And other thing is e-com transactions are growing from a rural area. So lots of e-com payments are happening because there are deliveries happening in rural India, though the urban Indias are in lockdown. So most of the rural customers who have debit cards are using it to buy products online. So I think semi-urban and rural would be a very, like I would say, a very big push. And they are all banked with cooperative banks. So unless the cooperative banks are digitized, they can't get onto a digital platform. And that's what I'm seeing, a huge pull from the banks. Means earlier it was a push, and now it's all.
Okay, thank you, Manda. So we discussed about this supply side factors, be it from sort of push incentives or other sort of mechanisms that we need to bring it to the customers. I want to get in perspective from demand side, and that's where I want to get Anand you into the discussion. That are we really addressing the customer pain points or the customer needs when it comes to getting payments to the masses? And how do you see that? The ecosystem changing when it comes to addressing their pain points. Any thoughts on that?
So I was talking to Sunil Kulkarni, the Deputy Managing Director of Acquisition, and he's advising us. And we were drawing the landscape of India to see that there is 8% digitized India. We call them digital savvy greedy India. So digitized, marginalized, and subsidized. तीन भाग में India बांटते हैं, right? 92% of India is part of the marginalized and subsidized India, where no one is willing to put money or attempt to build an infrastructure. Look at the super digital savvy greedy segment. They have a credit card, debit card, net banking, but they are over digitized. They are not loyal to any particular payment service provider. Today, who gives discount? I would switch my loyalty there. And most of the people are working on that awesome, cool looking quotient of high-end technology. What at Pay Nearby we look at is to digitize, sachetize, and universalize that technology in the hand of common man. To say, is that financial liberation in the hands of people? To come out of that rat race of that 8% India, you will see there is huge demand, unmet demand. The people on one hand who do not want to pay for the services which they get in the drawing room, there are people who are willing to pay on the contrast 1%, 2% for services which they will go out and seek, right? That we serve. 2% of at switch to water, water to desert. That is how paints and other products will take in India. If you see in times, if you a mass unmet India, let's look at few data points. It will be relevant. 1,05,000 bank branches in India. What have we? 6 lakh villages. Is this sufficient? Not at all. The infrastructure needs to be built in the form of the business correspondents reaching out as Hardukan Digital Pradhan, that we run a campaign and we see fabulous response. Every month, 50, 60, 70,000 new retailers want to come and join the program. The state governments are participating and supporting, the district magistrates are supporting. So this momentum has caught on. This is the escape velocity. The demand side remains unmet. Huge demand. Like it's in the morning, Dilip Asbe was talking about supply side we worked upon. Today, the demand there, the supply is also there. The mix has to be done. Connection of thoughts, the sakrama, like I was saying, repurposing it, the gallery is to be done. So that is the unmet Bharat, unserved Bharat will also point that India is unbanked, underbanked, and misbanked. There's nothing called banked India because you 150 million debit cards were pulled out of the system recently in November because they did not meet the chip and pin guidelines. And to those 115 million cards, there was no one to give money other than the Protection Pramanam, the thumb, the platform, and the backend technology what we have built and relate to our 5 lakh digital partners on the ground. India was able to get that money in the hand. You should have long queues in the rural India when government put money in the bank. We were the guys giving it in their hands. So the trust has been formed, augmented, I would say. My retail partners are already trusted. And now the trust has been augmented, super augmented by the government cashback, if you may call it for a while. To do habit formation, the cashback is required for the digital savvy. Here, the cashback was given by government every month, once, twice, thrice. People now know that there is an infrastructure called business correspondent, and government must work on giving tax benefits to this whole program, I would urge.
Thanks, Anand. In fact, a couple of points I'm picking it up, and I'll come in a while around trust and the digital awareness part. But before that, let me go to Sunil in the same context. When you talk about demand side and marketing plays an important role in terms of how do you market your payment products to the last mile consumers. How do you see the same product which is being marketed to urban customers, semi-urban and rural? And I'm sure each one has its own nuances when it comes to making them understand how the product have to be used and the experience have to be gotten to those customers. Sunil?
Yeah. So thanks. Amit. I think one thing all of us understand now, and probably that is good for the entire country, is that there is surely an India and a Bharat. In India, all of us are trying to ensure that when you go to one merchant or client, you give the complete digital payment ecosystem, and that is the right way to go also. While when you go to rural, I think rather than confusing that person, you should give him one or maximum two things and keep it simple for them. Now, before I come to the marketing piece, I think what is important where we can either succeed as a team or fail is that how exactly this transition is happening. Why was cash successful? Why is cash still successful? So this is a visiting card, but let's treat that this is a currency note, right? So it is so there are 4 S in this. It's very simple. I have this, I give it to you. That's it. It's simple. It's one step. I'm giving it to you, transaction done. This currency note is same everywhere. From Kanyakumari to Kashmir, the same note will have the same value and everybody will treat it in the same way. And it is stable. Today, if I forget demon, it is stable. So if it is a 100 rupee note, it remains a 100 rupee note. Now there was a simplicity. There is a simplicity which we have to appreciate and understand. And when you go to rural, the beauty about rural is the simplicity that they have. Now, the point for any marketer or all of us is, can we keep that simple? Now, the point is there are thousands of digital payment scenario. What do we educate them on? Then there's the issue of stability also. Every day, all of us, because we are the learning group, we think about probably getting a new product. Let's understand a new product. Yes, we guys can make, but what will happen to that merchant who is now becoming half literate or not literate, and the consumer, what is the adoption rate? So I think all of us as a group should firstly concentrate on simplicity. So I believe that demon and now this piece COVID, this a very big external disruption will give birth to a very good internal innovation or transformation. That has happened now. It is up to all of us. How do we carry that? So I think there are two things, dharma and karma. So RBI or banks decide the dharma and you guys decide the karma. How do we want to execute it? So from a marketing perspective, I will not talk about those vernacular things, which is of course needed. India is probably 30 countries put together. I think we have to keep it simple right from the product point of view. There is no uniformity between the bodies that work with. So there are four panelists here. All of them will have a different way to pitch a product, though the product will be the same. Somebody will call it bank in the box, somebody will call it payment in the box, but there are many ways. So can we as a team decide to keep it simple and uniform? That is number one. Can we speak in his language? And of course, vernacular is simple. And what Anand was talking about, and I know about Digital Pradhan as a program, or we have a Ongo Shiksha program. Can we genuinely, rather than focusing on only selling and money, can really empathize with the merchant and consumer that we are here to also teach you the pros and cons of each product. We are not here only to sell, but also to make you as a smart digital shopping and also work with you, for consumers, tell you that this is the right way to do a digital payment mode. This is currently not right for you. And in case of a fraud or issues, this is how you want to solve. I will not let you wait for 72 hours or 120 days for a refund, or because that doesn't happen in cash. Cash is either lost and there is no other problem. So I think those are the nuances, but there's a lot of hard work in that because as an industry, we need the currency is managed by one single body, so it's simple. But so many products are managed by a lot of learned companies and minds. So I think that is where the marketing piece starts, keeping it simple, keeping it stable, lesser steps. So when you talk about frictionless, can we have a one? So that is where click and go comes into picture, and be with them, empathize with them, and tell them through the marketing or education or training route that it is would mean yes, there would be certain kind of issues, but we will control it to 0.001 percentage. So I think that rather than talking about fancy Kotler kind of marketing, I will like to keep it simple and stable from all sides.
Thanks, Sunil. A very interesting perspective on understanding the mindset of the customer. Akash, I wanted to get you in. You spoke about this incentives, willingness of merchants to come and adopt the digital ecosystem. There's a infrastructure fund created by RBI, Payments Infrastructure Development Fund, and I do believe that these are initiatives which are needed in the current environment to kind of get more acceleration of the payments acceptance infrastructure. How do you see this particular incentive, this particular sort of infrastructure fund, and many more such initiatives are going to help in the growth of merchants payments ecosystem?
See, I believe this fund will help the acquirers, like increase the distribution to most number of the merchants. Because there's a cost involved to make the merchant, accept the digital payments, right? That is the first thing. I think this fund should help the distributor in the first place. The second, if you look at the offline, cost, there is a rental fee involved, right? I have to pay around 600 rupees per machine per month. And for the initial a year or two, right? Unless I see enough traction on digital payment side, as a merchant, I'll be reluctant. Right? To bypass that threshold, we may have to waive that fee, say for 6 months a year, so that this guy becomes used to this kind of process. And this is what not do. Right? This is what Uber did. Your first 5 ride is free, then you start paying the 6th ride. So that process has to be there in a lot of new areas where behavior change has to be made, or where we have to get them in the confidence. Right? If I'm paying 700 per month, if I'm just processing 10 carton rides, that's not worth it. Right? Then why should I continue doing it? So one is the consistency, right? We have to put a long-term belief. And to long-term belief, you have to keep aside certain funds, saying by spending 10 CR, 100 CR, I know we'll get 100,000 more merchants on the platform for sure. With that plan, if you move forward, right, by waiving off the charges, which is pinching the merchant, right, then I believe we can be successful in deploying this infra fund. Right. Second thing is more about the consistency for sure, but like Sunil mentioned, right, refund and all. The moment we launch a big infra thing or anything is being pushed up, right, be it UPI, if things doesn't work all the time, right, then again the trust becomes an issue. So I'll be a little reluctant in using it, more frequently. Right. Thirdly, it's more about the right tools. So right now, digital payment is being pushed by the internet penetration. Right? I think we should start looking at the alternate phase. Right. I think I'll slightly digress from what Sunil mentioned by having a very uniform, product, a platform for the customer. Because I believe payments is more like a language, right? Everyone has their own, taste around payments. One technology tool can work for, say, customers of North India, but it may not work for customers of Northeast India or West India. Right. So I think it's fair for companies to try multiple solutions. Right. So there would be market for every, kind of solution in India because, being a very diverse country. Just by pushing cash, just by pushing UPI, I don't think we'll do a right justice. Right? I know UPI is being pushed a lot. I really appreciate it and want to push it further. We have to start looking for a non-internet-based digital payment. What we can do to drive it further. That will help us, close the bigger share of the pie instead of just going after the initial adopter. So, as I mentioned, right, penetration and the frequency, right? Once we reach the penetration, then how do we increase the frequency is the next question.
Correct. Thanks. You spoke about payments being a language, and I was just thinking about in the current situation, like we have to wash our hands every moment in the current crisis. Why can't we use digital payments for every transaction? We have to do it. So thanks, Akash. We have 5 minutes now before the end of this session, and actually wanted to touch upon further other points around tour and transit. But let me now pick up one of the question what we have got from the audience. So the question is around with UPI being one of the most preferred payment mode, how do you think companies providing mobile wallet services would survive or make money? Anand, maybe you want to pick up this?
Yeah, it's a question in time. People have made a assumption that payments won't make money and wallets are dead. It's not true. Look at It's Cash. Naveen Surya built a wonderful product so many years ago. It was a truest form of the wallet and the automation today. Now, the concerns that people have today on exposing their bank account to UPI and eventually every fraud leading to two names that I should not name here. Every fraud on UPI is going into those particular bank accounts, and then the cyber crimes getting hyper and not being able to do much. It is a good time to replay the wallet with repurposing it, like I said, the Saregama, with UPI. And this is a permitted thing. Reserve Bank is thinking much ahead. Already they have permitted UPI on a PPI prepaid cards. And there is a huge roadmap we at least envisage to bring wallets to India in the right form, not the form or the segment which is digital savvy and value seekers. I'm advised not to use the word greedy anymore, but the value seeker segment beyond there is India, which will be able to thrive and which is willing to pay for a wallet and consume digital payment. Wait and watch.
Thanks, Anand. We've got another question around how do you think banks and payment service providers could build a secure UPI environment that ensures a seamless user experience and at the same time balance security risk?
No amount of technology evolution can surpass human stupidity.
Anything can happen.
Yeah.
Sunil, please to you.
Sorry?
No, you have to take the question. Please take it. But I just wanted to make a comment.
Sunil, yeah.
The UPI one?
Yep.
So I think most of the companies are working to ensure that the risk and fraud are under control. So the risk and fraud would happen. We work with ACI to ensure a risk-free environment, and a lot of other panelists are also having a lot of secure environment. But as Anand was trying to say is that we would, so when you have lakhs and millions and trillions of transactions, there would be certain transactions which are going here and there. We only need to do two things. One is control that percentage to a bare minimum. And second is the customer dissonance should not last for more than few days or few hours. If that is done, the customer feels secure. But so that is what I was discussing, that if Twitter can be hacked, anything can happen. So because there would be people doing few things here and there. So I think we should not get worried about it. We should get more ready about how to secure, how to do more work around risk. Plus, I think there are a lot of things from a merchant perspective or a consumer perspective, which is a new line called transaction insurance, though that's a completely different topic. But I believe that the country is doing enough through government and through companies and bodies that will ensure that customer is satisfied and is not perturbed by the risk and fraud happening through it. Though because we are living in the WhatsApp world, so one issue would be multiplied millions of times. So it looks at the same issues happening in a lot of places, which is not the case. So I know what our percentage is, and the percentage is not increasing at all. So I think India as a country is doing well there.
Thanks, Sunil. In fact, we have been getting a lot more questions, but I think we are almost out of the time. But I just want to go to each one of you just to have maybe 30 seconds closing remarks. How do you see the payments ecosystem evolving in the next 3 to 5 years, and especially in the context of how are we going to help connect with the masses? Maybe Manda, you want to start?
I think UPI would be one of the biggest drivers, and contactless payment will be one of the biggest drivers in the coming years. Though ATMs and the traditional will remain and grow, I think the checks will get replaced. Checks will be replaced by digital payment, and more attention has to be given to fraud risk management systems. I think that is something which is really not explored by most of the banks and the IT companies. I think FRM would be the biggest technology drivers for next years. As we go from a two-factor authentication to a single-factor authentication below 2,000 rupees for faster and easier payments. So with that also comes a huge risk. So as the convenience increases, this risk increases, and FRM will be the biggest driver.
Thank you. Akash, your closing comments.
Sure. I think, in my opinion, I think there will be. I mean, we'll have to wait for a bit more time, right? So, take example of folks who are at 15 years old, right? They are using TikTok, WhatsApp, Facebook right now. They're already getting trained to use internet-based application. And once those folks become 20, 22, 25, then penetration will increase automatically, right? We just have to be ready with infrastructure. So we can't push it to the guys who are already in 35, 40 and try to educate them a lot. Right. So I think we'll have to wait also and make sure infra is ready, right? I like to, plus one the point Mandar is fraud risk will become a very big issue once the usage goes up. Right. It's still a bigger issue. A lot of cybercrime complaints we also receive, right, on a news every day. Punjab police sending, Haryana police sending. And people don't know how to, even go and file a police complaint. It's very hard and confusing. So that is more like demotivated. We have to make sure fraud won't happen in the first place. Right. If a card is being stolen, there should be a quicker way to stop it. Right, and people have to be a bit more aware, right, sharing their OTP. When this will take time, again, as I said, once people become savvy about internet application, these problems will go away, right?
Sure.
So, yeah.
Thanks, Akash. Anand?
What should be, but what should not be, I would want to take this time. Don't make me consume poison without touching spoon is the answer to the question that has come in the last point, that how can you take cash out of ATM without touching it? Why? There is an opportunity. Evolve, leapfrog India, please go to the next. What is the point in Reserve Bank putting 250 crore on deploying an old guard technology of course when there is a UPI and the QR available? Don't be looking into the rear view mirror and doing things for the future. There is a NABARD fund lying here untouched for 5-6 years. People have not gone and accessed it for sheer fear of the way the reportings and all have to be done and administration have to be done. Lighten up those things, please. This is a moment to leapfrog, change. This is a moment.
Thanks, Anand. Sunil?
Yeah, so I think I'm the last. So I've been attending a lot of, like others, a lot of Indian webinars and a lot of global webinars. One thing is clear, that we are blessed that the world is not only watching us, they're wanting us. So India is the market to be in terms of digital payment. And I think we are very smart people and we are doing it rightly. So that piece, I don't think that the gurus who can predict the percentage, because any percentage that we predict will be super fast. So that's no issue. I think the factors that all of us are talking about, increase in banking, DBT, mobile penetration, 5G, Everything is happening simultaneously. Why should it not grow? It will grow leaps and bounds. Two important things that will happen apart from the consolidation in digital payment portfolio is lending attached to digital payment will help merchants a lot. In fact, to an extent, consumer also. And you will see now the big fish that we talk about, which is data monetization. I think digital payment will lead the way to ensure that it is not only data monetization, but data being used for the benefit of consumers and merchant is the big piece that now people are realizing. And I think that is the way to go, where digital payment will not only become a mode of payment, but a mode of engagement, talking, and conversing also from both a merchant and a consumer point. So just wait and watch. The country will rock.
Thanks, Sunil. I can see Garima coming in to kind of asking us to close. So thank you, everyone. I can only say that we are living in an exciting environment, and like my esteemed panelists, I'm also very passionate about sort of digital payments growth in the entire country. So thank you, everyone, for joining us here and sharing your insightful and enriching experience. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Mr. Jain.
Thanks, Garima. Thanks, all.
Thank you, Mr. Jain. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, the speakers, for this very, very enriching and very interactive session. I must say that all of us are going to take a lot of key learnings from the session. I would now take a small break, and don't forget to please go to our exhibition space. We have over 70 exhibitors in that space. Some really exciting prizes lined up there. I would also like to thank our valued partners, AWS, PhonePe, Zendesk, and PayPoint. Stay tuned, and thank you very much, speakers. Thank you, everyone. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye bye.